Welcome to Shut Up and Say Something. I am your host and creator of the show, Deidre Daniel. This podcast is all about how to live a more fascinating life. And we're learning how to do that one interesting conversation at a time. We try to avoid politics, religion, and the ad nauseum topic du jour. Every once in a while, we slide in there a little bit, but then we slide right back out again. Today, I'm flying solo. After the popularity of episode number 5, which was something I did at the last minute as a way to fill a sudden void in programming, I decided I would continue to run solo shows every 5th episode. So 5, 10, 15, 20, and so on, you'll get me all to yourself. The format of these solo episodes will be some thoughts I have based on maybe something I read recently, a new story or two, something going on in my life, a summary of the past 4 shows, a preview of future episodes, and a few oddball questions or facts for you to think about and discuss with others over the weekend. A big reason why I release these episodes on Friday mornings at 11:11 a.m. Eastern Time is because I want to give you content and things to think about and discuss with others as the weekend unfolds. The first order of business, I need to apologize to Chuck Klosterman formally. In episode 5, I said he was not a futurist, but I recently started reading his book, What If We're Wrong, which is about thinking about the present as if it were the past. And first of all, the book's cover is upside down, which I absolutely adore. And he dives into the state of the music industry and what will define it in the future. He broaches other topics like freedom. And well, you're just going to have to give it a read. I need to apologize to Chuck. I haven't finished this book yet, but it's very clear that I am wrong. He is quite the futurist and he has a lot of fantastic ideas that I think you should try to expose yourself to. So, even though Chuck has no idea that I said this about him and none of his fans have reached out in his defense, I'm going to go ahead and issue a formal apology to Chuck. I'm sorry. Speaking of apologies, I got in a fight with my husband a few days ago. He considers himself to be a condiment connoisseur. He's a sucker for packaging and cannot pass up a bottle of sauce with a fancy label. Whatever I make for dinner, he thinks needs a dot, dash, or wiggly line of something from his condiment collection. It annoys me sometimes, especially when I think I've perfectly seasoned a dish, but whatever, there's no accounting for taste. Most of these sauces are vinegar based and do not need refrigeration, but he lovingly places each one in there like it's some sort of treasured bottle of rare wine. What is undeniable is that his collection of concoctions takes up too much space in the fridge. And that annoys me because I don't have enough room for my face masks and eye cream. So a few nights ago, we sat down to dinner and he did his predictable line dance to the fridge to pull out a specially curated condiment for that meal. And he stopped dead in his tracks and he said in one of these like accusatory tones, "What is this?" Then he marched to the kitchen table and placed a bottle of teriyaki sauce on the table in front of me like he had found a letter from a lover or something. I said, "Well, that looks like teriyaki sauce." And then he gets a little testy with me. "I know it's teriyaki sauce, but what is it doing in the fridge?" And I said, "I don't know. I guess you put it in there." Then he gets a little angry, which I rarely see because he's one of these laid back guys who like never gets upset about anything. And he gets mad. He says, "I did not buy this." And I said, "Well, you probably did and you forgot." And then he gets mad. He goes, "I don't even like teriyaki sauce." And I said, "Well, maybe you bought it by accident." And that's when he loses it. He storms over to his backpack, rifles through it, and pulls out a grocery store receipt. "Look, no teriyaki sauce on there." And I said, "Well, that doesn't really prove anything. It wouldn't be on the receipt if you didn't actually buy it. I think someone slipped it into your bag and you just didn't notice." And then he gets really mad. He goes, "But then I would have seen it when I unpacked the bag." At this point, I'm laughing and he becomes even angrier, which makes me laugh even more because I've never seen him mad before. And it's funny that of all the topics, of all the things in the world to get upset about, this is the tipping point. Like this is what makes him mad is a strange bottle of teriyaki sauce in the refrigerator. I mean, he's losing his mind. So then he goes, "Oh, I get it. You think this is funny. You did this. You did this. You are playing a joke on me." And now I'm torn because it's actually the perfect joke, but I didn't play it. I'd love to take credit for it. And then I started to think, did someone sneak into our home and leave a bottle of teriyaki sauce? Because if so, bravo. But then again, that's also kind of creepy. And then I started to think, note to self, I'm going to change out all of the condiments for April Fools next year. But we still have this unsolved mystery of the teriyaki sauce to deal with. So this is all going into my mind as he's just getting more and more upset. And I'm laughing. So while I'm pondering this and laughing, he accuses me of gaslighting him. Gaslighting? Really? He had just recently learned what that term means, and now he's throwing it at me as this sort of lame defense. So I stop laughing, take the moment a little bit more seriously. And I was like, I would never, ever attempt to gaslight you. And I certainly wouldn't try to make you go insane by pretending I didn't place a bottle of sauce in the fridge. Note to self, sauce denying is a serious business. So I may need to rethink that whole future April Fool's trick. Originally what I had planned to do is that I was going to go into his Netflix account and thumbs up a lot of content that he strongly dislikes so that the algorithm recommends all the wrong shows, which might actually be kind of mean, but I also thought it would be really funny. So I'm probably going to do that instead of the sauce. And luckily that's about, I don't know, 7-8 months from now. So he will forget by the time April Fool's rolls around. So anyway, now I have to focus on calming him down because he's getting progressively more worked up. I've never seen him like this before, ever. And I said, there's a couple somewhere arguing about why they don't have teriyaki sauce in the house. Do you realize that's going on right now? And I think it would be a funny movie where the camera goes back and forth to the scenes in these two homes where they're arguing about the same bottle of sauce, but for different reasons. Their relationship begins to unravel, other topics are brought up. It could actually be very hilarious to watch. And then Rob brightened up. He's like, yeah. And then what if the grocery store baggers are in on it? So apparently there's like a contest where they rack up points by moving items into someone else's bag. I'm like, right. Yeah. So then alcohol, condoms, tampons, and chocolate are all the highest point items. And he was like, I like that. We probably need to add something else, like maybe hemorrhoid medication. We're like, oh, yeah, there you go. So now his mood changes and his curiosity gets the best of him. And he cracks open the sauce and tries it. He says, what the heck is this? Who would even buy this? It's disgusting. And as he's reading the label, it says coconut amino acids. It's like, yuck, this is so gross. So then I thought, well, what if the couple with the sauce tries it just like he did, but one of them is allergic to coconut and didn't notice it on the label, and they wind up going to the emergency room. Meanwhile, the other husband returns to the grocery store to demand the bottle that he paid for and did not receive, but they're out of that particular brand. So then my husband goes, yeah. And then all they have left is Kiko Man brand sauce, which is not as good and ruins the meal. And her mother-in-law calls her out on it. Like, did you use Kiko Man? And the moral of the story here is that you can probably diffuse any argument simply by turning it into a screenplay. And if any of you thought that was a good premise for a movie and you want to help us write the screenplay, reach out anytime. I was looking over the stats for my show, and it's pretty exciting, if not a little addicting, to see the number of downloads go up each day, especially for older episodes. And I noticed one download in Belgium for all past episodes. And there could be more people hitting the play button, but one person I think has been faithfully downloading each episode as soon as it comes out. Granted, it could be 9 people who downloaded one episode each, or one person downloaded 8 and a different person downloaded the 9th one. There are many combinations or permutations or whatever, but I'm betting it's one person. So a special shout out goes to the one person downloading my episodes in Belgium. Hi, let me know who you are. How did you find me? What do you like about this podcast? And I really appreciate the fact you've been with me since day one, which is pretty awesome. So let me know who you are and, send me your mailing address and I'll send you a thank you gift. This next story is just for you. So for everyone else listening, you're going to have to stop listening because this is not for you. It's for this person in Belgium. I went to high school in High Wycombe, England with a bunch of US military brats. I was selected to compete in the International Drama Festival in Belgium during my junior year. My parents were not thrilled with my participation, but there really wasn't a real reason for them not to let me go. And this festival took place on a NATO base in Belgium. Kids from military schools worldwide flew in for a few days, and the local military personnel stationed on that base volunteered to house these kids in their quarters. But what we didn't know when we arrived is there was actually a shortage of volunteers. They didn't have enough housing. So there was this last minute scramble, and a woman volunteered to take me and one other girl back to her house. When we arrived, she picked us up with her live-in boyfriend, which my parents would not have approved of at all because they're living in sin, you know? So when I placed a long distance call back to my parents to let them know I had arrived safely, I left that little detail out. I remember my mother gave me a Port Marion vase to bring as a thank you gift. I was taught you never arrive at someone's home empty handed. The thing is, this vase did not match the woman's decor, which was actually rather masculine. And this vase was white, porcelain, with little flowers all over it. And I could tell she didn't like it because she wasn't even sure where to place it in her living room. She's like, I guess I'll put it over here or maybe over here. And I could tell she was hoping someone would accidentally break it. So she assigned us to her one guest bedroom where she expected us to share a bed. That was a little more than awkward because I didn't even really know this other girl very well. And it was the first time I had ever slept in a California king bed. So my emotions were kind of all over the place. And this other girl was very tiny. She was probably 80 pounds soaking wet. And she snored like a lumberjack. She reminded me of those snoring cartoons where the roof lifts off the house every time they exhale. And the couple living in sin took us out sightseeing, which I thought was actually very nice of them. And they insisted we do two things: have authentic frites, which was the first time I had ever had French fries with mayonnaise all over them. I didn't like it at first, but I actually prefer it now over ketchup. And we went to Waterloo, where the big battle happened where Napoleon lost his position as the Emperor of France. And a couple of things about Waterloo and Napoleon. Waterloo is or was a big open field with like this grassy hill in the middle of it. It kind of looked like a grassy pyramid, like a small little pyramid. It reminded me of Madonna's rhinestone encrusted cone shaped bra that she was wearing back at the time. And little side note fact about Napoleon, he's known for being short, aggressive, and like really bossy. But historians say that he was 5'5", which was about 1 inch shorter than the average Frenchman at the time. He had a huge bodyguards that followed him around everywhere. So by comparison, he looked exceptionally short when he actually wasn't. I think that's pretty interesting. But he was definitely aggressive and, kind of hard to deal with. So that part's true. At the drama festival, I played Desdemona in Shakespeare's Othello, which was opposite of a friend of mine named Doug Whitten, who really smothered me on stage. I had to fight him off and then go fake, like this sort of like this fake limp, which wasn't really faking at all. And the judge said our death scene was so realistic that we won first place for classical drama. I also had to do a scene where I played Virginia Woolf opposite of a guy named Mike, and I had no idea how this was supposed to be played. It was absolutely terrible, and I totally bombed it. The festival hosted a dance for the kids on the last night, and the cutest boy ever asked me to slow dance, which was a big deal because I thought he was more interested in one of my prettier friends, but I was wrong, which was kind of awesome. I also bombed an Algebra 2 exam the day before I was scheduled to leave for Belgium. I hid my grade from my parents until I returned because I knew that they would use it as a reason to not let me go on the trip. And this grade was really a problem because my mother was a math teacher. It's not like I didn't, it's not like I couldn't get help with my homework. I just didn't like the subject matter. And Mrs. Wernette was my teacher, and she wore these moo dresses, and she would touch the chalkboard with her damp fingers, leave a handprint on the chalkboard wall, and then transfer the chalk to her dress. And this constant chalk transfer created these fascinating patterns all over her dress, which were much more interesting to me than the math lessons. And after that trip to Belgium, my parents didn't allow me to participate in drama activities again. So that's my whole take on Belgium: Waterloo, mayonnaise on French fries, a cute boy that liked me instead of my pretty friend, and the end of my drama career. Yeah. For those of you who missed past shows, episode 6 was with Sean Durham, and he talks about leaving his safe corporate job to be a writer, only to suffer a hand injury a few months after quitting. He talks about all of his side hustles, like he picked up to pay the bills when he couldn't write, which led to him starring in commercials, landing a spoken role on an HBO series, and then a stint on a reality dating TV show. Throughout the interview, it's clear how important family is to him, and it's especially heart-wrenching because his mother suddenly passed a few days ago, which was just weeks after our recording. So I'm sending love to you, Sean, and I will drop ways for you, the listeners, to reach out to him in the notes. I'm sure he would appreciate any kind of kind words you want to send his way. In episode 7, I chat with McManus Woodend, who became one of the GEICO Cavemen. He walks us through his audition and what he did to stand out to land the role of a lifetime. He loves movies, and we get a little nerdy discussing all things cinema, including his dissertation topic, because he is a Ph.D. candidate. Episode 8 was with Lawrence Richards, whom Terry Carden from episode 2 nominated. He is her big brother. She submitted several random and intriguing questions about Lawrence, like ask him about the property he lives on, which requires special headgear. Then ask him about the year with Harvey, his favorite teacher, and his pet rabbit in the military. Those questions set us off on some very interesting conversations, including a story about a penis-shaped cloud formation, among other things. So if you know someone quirky or does interesting things, walks to their own beat, or sees the world through a humorous lens, nominate them to be on a show by submitting intriguing questions about them. Send those to service@interestingconversations.com. And in episode number 9 was with the glamorous Kiki L'Italien, who talks about being an entrepreneur for over a decade and what it takes to motivate yourself, pushing forward when no one is pulling for you. And we somehow wind up talking about a Mormon biker gang, a gorgeous man who will forever be named Canadian Brad Pitt, and some other stories involving our clothing. The next episode is with Louis Rosenberg. He invented a technology that helps groups, organizations, and businesses make the right decision with incredible results. I'm sure you've been part of a group discussion where someone pushes their stupid agenda through. Other people are afraid to speak up and often go along with them for political gain. You've been in these situations, right? They don't want to upset the boss or go against like what they think that is like the group opinion. There are always lots of egos involved, and people often can't campaign for their idea ahead of these meetings, or they are in the habit of shooting down the ideas or ignoring the opinions of others that are not like them. And then, of course, the company goes bankrupt. I mean, that's why you look at all of these businesses that are no longer around, they're non existent today. And it all boils down to bad decisions. I mean, we can discuss poor leadership, hubris, change management, or communication issues, or shifting market conditions. Still, it really boils down to a few people in power making the wrong choices that have a domino effect on everything else. Lewis created a way to fix all of that and help boost morale and improve your diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives too, because it allows everyone to have a voice and you don't know who's saying what, but collectively as a group, you make the right decision. And everyone has more buy-in because they saw the decisions being made. For those of you who love betting on sports or picking the right stocks, you will want to listen to this episode because he talks about how to use this technology to make those right decisions too. And even if you don't care about any of those topics, you will want to learn about the metaverse. We talk about if you should invest in real estate and all of the privacy issues that could quickly impact your life if laws are not made ASAP. And that's about as political as we get because it's not about certain sides of politics. It's like all of us need to come together and collectively create new laws for essentially a new game, new rules for a new game. Mark your calendar for next Friday at 11:11 a.m. Eastern Time. In fact, mark every Friday because that's when the next episode drops. If you subscribe, you'll receive instant notifications when the next episode is ready, and you will always have new things to think about or talk about with others over the weekend. Also, most of you probably hit the play button, but next to that is an arrow that points down. That's the download button. Get it? Down for download. When you download an episode, it is saved to the library on the platform you are using, allowing you to listen to the episode without a Wi Fi connection. And that is perfect when you're riding on planes or going on hikes or whenever you don't want to mess around with a Wi Fi signal. It also counts as a solid listen in the podcasting world. For whatever reason, downloads carry more weight than hitting the play button. It means you are a serious listener, and that moves me up in the rankings. So, thank you for listening, and thank you even more for downloading. I know there are millions of podcasts out there and millions of other things to occupy your time. So, thank you for spending some of your time with me. I like to end every episode with cards I write for the very interesting game and the very interesting game show. Still, for today's episode, I'm pulling 3 cards from Chuck Klosterman's collection of questions. He calls it Hypotheticals 50 Questions for Insane Conversations. And I am recording in Florida right now, and there's a big old thunderstorm coming in, and sometimes that knocks out the power. So that might cut our conversation a little short. Now I'm going to move into 3 questions from Chuck's stack here. Number 1, a total stranger picks a fight with you in the bar. This stranger is exactly your same size and weight. You have done nothing to this individual to warrant animosity, but the stranger really wants to fight you. And to make matters weirder, this stranger wants to fight you on the moon. And this is somehow possible. You and this stranger will be transported to the surface of the moon, outfitted in ultra thin and very comfortable spacesuits and rigged with lightweight oxygen tanks. You will then be expected to fight for 10 3-minute rounds. You can't use weapons, there are no rules, and you cannot quit unless you or your opponent are knocked unconscious. And the follow up question is, do you accept this challenge? And if yes, what is your moon fighting strategy? Well, I will accept it because it's a free ride to the moon. I mean, I've always wanted to go to the moon, so that's going to get me there. And then on the way there, I will do my best to diffuse the situation and like figure out why this person's so angry. I mean, hopefully by the time we land, we will actually be friends. And if they want to keep fighting, I will insist on exiting the ship first. And then as soon as they leave the ship, I will place my hand on their helmet and like push them away, which should send them off at like a big distance, maybe even off the moon a little bit. Anyway, so I'm going to push them out of the way. But if they somehow come back at me and try to fight me, then I'll tear a hole in their spacesuit using a paperclip I had hidden in my glove so that they die. I mean, I tried to be friends with them. I'm not a murderous person, but I also don't have time for this nonsense, or I don't want to be looking over my shoulder for the rest of my life because there's this person that wants to fight me. And technically a paperclip is just a basic office supply item, so I didn't violate the no weapons rule. And then I'll enjoy the moon for a little bit, bounce around, do some anti-gravity flips and stuff. So yeah, that's what I would do. And so let's move on to the next question. Okay. At the age of 30, you suffer a blow to the skull. The head trauma leaves you with a rare form of partial amnesia, though you are otherwise fine. You're completely missing 5 years from your life. You have no memory of anything that happened between the ages of 23 and 28. That period of your life is completely gone. You were told by friends and family that when you were 25, you supposedly became close friends with someone you met on the street. You possess numerous photos of you and this person, and everyone in your life insists that this individual was your best friend for more than 2 years. You were, allegedly, inseparable. In fact, you find several old letters and emails from this person that vaguely indicate you may have even shared a brief romantic relationship. But something happened between the two of you and this individual when you were 27. Wait, hold on. But something happened between you and this individual when you were both 27, and the friendship abruptly ended. And apparently, you never told anyone what caused this schism, so it remains a mystery to all. The friend moved away soon after the incident, wholly disappearing from your day-to-day life, but you have no memory of any of this. Within the context of your own mind, this person never even existed. There is tangible proof that you deeply love this friend, but whenever you look at his or her photograph, all you see is a stranger. 6 weeks after your accident, you were informed that this person has suddenly died. Are you all with me so far? So the follow up question is, how sad do you feel? Oh my gosh. Uh, I would be very sad. I cry in sad movies. I even cry in heartwarming films. And I bawled my eyes out watching The Phantom of the Opera last night. I mean, seriously, my eyes were still puffy this morning when I woke up. If you have not seen it, you absolutely have to. It's a true story about a poor man who did not know how to play golf and wiggled his way into the British Open. And that's all I'm going to tell you. I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's one of those rooting for the underdog movies, and it's really stellar. And so, anyway, yeah, I would be crying about this person. I'd feel sad. No. And the last question from Chuck for today. Scientists build a massive space station. I can't say that. Scientists build a massive space station that allows mankind to control the worldwide weather. As a result, there are no more weather emergencies. There are no more droughts or floods or tornadoes, and global warming has been eliminated. However, there is an immediate demand for perfect days. Because the weather can be controlled, many people want the weather to be nicer and more predictable. A large segment of the populace wants there to be two specified dates, April 22nd and October 22nd, where every place on Earth would simultaneously experience ideal weather conditions for 24 hours. Those 2 days would become worldwide holidays, ideal for weddings, reunions, outdoor sporting events, and any tourism or traveling that demands meteorological perfection. Every community on Earth would have perfect weather on these two designated days. However, the environmental community claims that this might be risky. There is no precedent for worldwide perfection, and environmental leaders fear that this could create problems that we cannot foresee. It can't be nice everywhere, says Universal Weather Czar Al Gore. At any given moment, at least 1/3 of the planet needs to be dealing with semi-crappy weather. However, no one can specifically prove why this alleged perfection would be dangerous because it's never happened before. So the follow-up question is, where would you stand on this issue as it's pouring down rain outside right now? Do y'all hear the thunder? I don't know if the microphone's picking that up. Okay, here's the follow-up question. Where would you stand on this issue? I can't talk today. Where would you stand on this issue? Do you want the perfect, although potentially harmful days? Hmm. See, here's the thing. My idea of perfect weather does not match most people's. I like it partly cloudy and kind of cool. I don't really like sunshine. I can't. Like, my skin is too pale. I just can't handle the sun. And I know I live in Florida and it's weird. It's kind of a problem. I just avoid it at all costs. So, I mean, I say they should try it because they have never tried it before. And they also haven't had any disasters in a while. So roll the dice and see. And if it looks like it's catastrophic, they could quickly change the weather. I mean, they could even dry it out if it's too wet or whatever. Like, I think they could fix it pretty quickly if they needed to. They could reverse course, I think, anyway. But everyone will argue over a perfect day anyway. So I think the discussion is kind of moot because my perfection is not your perfection. And that's probably a good thing. What do you think? So that's it for today. Listen next Friday at 11:11 a.m. Eastern, where I have a very long and super interesting discussion with Dr. Louis Rosenberg. Trust me, the topics we discuss could change your life. I'm not exaggerating. Until then, my friends, be interesting.